There we go. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Charbonneau, the associate publisher for SpinSheet magazine. I'm here with Molly Winans over there. Hi, Molly.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Wow. It's been about a month since our last, right? We did one last month, happy hour.
It's been 2 weeks or something.
Okay, 2
And
weeks.
we had these boat shows in between, so
That's what it was. It feels like a month.
Yeah, so that's why it feels like a month. I think it was only 3 weeks ago, but
It was.
it was a great show. If there are any cruisers out there watching, we had the folks from Calico Skies Sailing on, and they gave us some good information for aspiring cruisers out there. We're gonna switch gears tonight, though. We're talking about racing tonight.
Yes. I will say, if you didn't get a chance to see that episode, it's on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Check it out. I know you did too. We both ran into Bill and Grace on the streets of Annapolis and at the show. They're a really nice couple, and it was actually a really cool show.
Yeah.
Speaking of the boat shows, though, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to everybody that came out and came by our booth. And even had some random people come up and just say thank you for the magazine. And some people even said, thank you for the SpinSheet happy hour, which I knew some people were watching.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, really. And it was great to see everybody at the boat shows. It's a unique time for us because we really don't get a chance to see or get feedback from a lot of people at other places but the boat shows. So
I had one guy come up to me and he said, "You probably don't remember me because you haven't seen me for 30 years, but we used to teach sailing together." And when he finally took his sunglasses off, I looked at his face like, "I remember you." I totally didn't remember his name though, but he lives in Texas. And he said, "Yeah, I watch those happy hours. They're really fun for me." So
that's cool.
That's the kind of stuff you get at the boat show that just reminds you that, oh, okay, well, we're not talking into the void here. Someone's actually paying attention, which is really cool.
Yes. So thanks everybody for doing that. The boat shows were a tremendous success. And before we get started, I do need to thank Defender for being our sponsor for tonight. Defender has just been awesome to SpinSheet. And if you get a chance, go to defender.com. They were always have some pretty cool deals out there. If you're not signed up for our special deals email on our subscriber list, do that. Defender from time to time has some pretty outstanding deals, and we announce that through the email list as well. So sign up for that. And without any further ado, let's.
Well, before we bring him on, what are you drinking over there?
Yes, I am drinking. I am having some Woodford Reserve tonight. Taking just a small break from rum, and moving over to the bourbon. What are you drinking?
Well, I'm just drinking a little vino here. It's sort of a Friday, nice light Friday afternoon thing. So cheers.
Cheers to you.
Well, I'm excited to talk about double-handed racing. We have Roger Lant on the show, and he was on the show one other time, and he was on a show we talked about disasters, things going wrong, and he talked about losing his mast and just the mess of it and getting his boat back together. And he was such a sport about it, and it was really a fun show. But tonight we get but we remember from that show that he loves to talk about sailing, and he wasn't even supposed to be in town tonight, but he said, "Oh, I can squeeze that in because that gives me a chance to talk about double-handed racing," which I love. So Roger is going to be on the show with his most recent double-handed racing crew, Michael Wellen.
Cool.
Should we bring them on?
Let's bring them on and see what they're drinking.
All right.
Hey guys.
Hi, Roger.
Hi.
Oh, cheers. Welcome to the SpinSheet Happy Hour. Michael, you're our first-time guest, so cheers. What are you drinking over there?
Bullet Rye Manhattan. So I'm also in the whiskey bunch. So.
Nice.
Wow. So sophisticated.
That is. That's some good stuff right there.
And Michael, where are you? Are you an Annapolis guy or are you?
No, I live in Arlington. So I do the long drive, similar to Roger, to get there for sailing.
Uh-huh. Got it.
Cool.
How about you, Roger? Where are you? Or is this a secret location you can't tell us?
Secret location. I am Mount Vernon, just south of Old Town Alexandria.
Oh, okay.
About an hour from Annapolis.
Yeah. All right. And what are you drinking?
I'm keeping it simple. Just a beer.
All right. Well, can you clink toward the center there? Do you know where center is? Make that happen. Yes. These are some of the tricks you learn on the SpinSheet Happy Hour that you don't do in ordinary life. So anyway, cheers and welcome to the program. Sharpie, you going to go back into the green room while we talk about racing?
I sure am. You guys have a great show, and I'll see you in a little bit.
All right. So thank you for joining us, people in the audience. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them into the comments, and we will address them either as they come in or when, like if I know we're just about to get to that topic anyway, we'll save them a little bit, but we will answer your questions. I also want to say that if you would like to share this program on your Facebook page, we pick up some other sailors along the way and ones who think, oh, I'm glad you reminded me. It's I forgot it, or I didn't get the email this morning or anything like that. So let's start at the beginning. And Michael, I'm going to ask you first, just because you're new on the program and you should go first. Can you share a little bit about your sailboat racing background and how you started to get into double-handed racing?
Sure. I actually grew up on a sailboat as a kid. So I did
what kind?
11 to 13, my parents retired early, and we did spend a couple of years. I didn't actually do any racing at the time. It took me actually moving to Annapolis, which, 12, 13, 14 years ago, I think, around that time. Came to Annapolis, was like, well, I'm here. Might as well do the drive and get back into racing. So I started doing some racing, started as rail meet and worked my way slowly up. And then raced with Roger a little bit. Met Roger actually on a race from Annapolis to Newport. We got along really well. And then when he had his trip 26, we raced a little bit together. When he bought his current boat, Aviento, he hit me back up and I said, sure. And I guess 3 years ago, Roger said, hey, you want to do this double-handed thing? And I was like, all right, why not? Let's give it a try. So that was the introduction into double-handed.
Oh, so have you done it together all 3 years?
All 3 years for the Annapolis AYC double-handed race. Yeah.
Okay, great. How about you, Roger? I know your double-handed experience goes back a little farther than that, and feel free to tell us about that first race.
Well, so I was very fortunate in I used to sail dinghies, got acquainted with a guy that owned a boat on the west coast of Scotland. We raced 38-foot one design. And then one day, all the stars were shining in the right direction, and he invited me to go double hand with him. And I love doing other jobs on the boat apart from the one I'm tasked with. So it was a great opportunity to get out and run the front half of a 38-foot boat. So we started in logs on the west coast of Scotland, sailed out to the Isle of Arran, and there's a little island that lies just inside that Holy Isle. We rounded that and sailed back to logs. So it was blowing quite heavily that day. We had about 25 knots of breeze.
Wow.
We had the spinnaker up and we were heading down Loch Fyne, and we were surfing at probably 13 and a half plus knots.
Wow.
This was 1990, so it was the start of the sports boat era, and this little Sigma 8 came blasting past us, and all I remember is this beautiful bright pink spinnaker. They broached, Chinese jibed in front of us, and all you saw was this puff of ribbons as their kite exploded. And as we surfed past them, we were smiling back while asking them if they were okay. But It was all good. So that day we tucked in behind the island. We had the spinnaker up. We decided we were going to put the number 2 up for the return journey. And we were just starting to put our nose down past the back end of the island. And the wind was as strong as it was earlier. So we put the number 3 up. So we were coming to our turning mark. We had the spinnaker up. We had the number 2 up. We had the number 3 up. and we had to clear 2 sails off the deck so we could turn the corner. So I just remember getting them down, sitting on the rail at the end of it, and just being absolutely exhausted. But the thrill of blowing downwind at speed, it's just fabulous feeling.
Yeah. And that was your very first double-handed race?
That was my very first double-handed race.
Did you do any double-handed racing after that, before you started racing with Michael and they conceived of the AYC race?
No, I didn't. I done a lot of short-handed sailing with my wife down in the Caribbean, but outside of that, no racing.
Okay. So that's great. So you were not a total beginner, but you and Michael sort of have a, and I believe, Roger, I saw you double-handing in the Oxford race this summer. Is that?
That's correct. Michael and I were going out for a practice. Okay. I'm becoming a little frustrated with the AYC double-handed race because it's been second, and I was determined we needed to get out and do some practice, so we weren't talking about the second again.
Yeah. Just a little competitive. With Michael, have there been other double-handed races for you, or has that been exclusively with Roger?
Nope, that's it. Just with Roger.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been spending most of the time together in that case.
So, Roger, let's talk a little bit about, just for anyone who's watching, who's thinking, how do you go from having a big crew to having a teeny tiny crew? How many people do you usually race with? For anyone who's not familiar with Aviento or the J35, how many people do you usually race with on that boat on your regular Wednesday night races?
So, one design racing on that boat, we are 9 up, fully crewed. And so, given the competitive nature of the boats at the top of the fleet, then we need to go out fully crewed in order to be competitive. So to sail it competitively around the race course, we can do it generally with 6 or 7 very capable crew, and then a couple of extra just for weight.
Yeah. Can you describe the various controls on the boat? How complicated is it from a racing standpoint?
Well, I think if you get a lot of modern sailors on the boat, they've got a small head sail, so they can go tack to tack, almost full trim to full trim, without a lot of grinding. We're sailing with a 155 Genoa typically, so it's a much more onerous position on the head sail. The spinnaker, I think, in the modern symmetricals, modern asymmetricals, not that I've sailed with one very much, you've got 2 strings back in the cockpit. On the 35, we've got 4. So we end up with a cluster of lines stuck in the bottom of the boat. It just makes it that little bit more challenging. So our minimum crew structure normally is bowman, mastman, pit, 2 head sail trimmers, main trimmer, and a driver as a minimum well-qualified and experienced crew.
Yeah. Okay. So what were your apprehensions the first time that you attempted to double hand the 35?
I think it was more about energy management. I think if the wind is not too strong, then spinnaker management is fairly straightforward as long as you apply good technique. I think the challenge more comes when you're talking about head sail changes, just because of the amount of energy it takes up on the foredeck to change the head sail. So good technique, good planning are key aspects of getting the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Roger on that. I would say that I think we figured that out in our first race. I think that when we were out doing our practice, that's when we really figured that out. I think prior to that, I think another thing that was a big concern was safety, right? Making sure that each of us knew how could we get the sails down quickly if one of us went overboard. Make sure that we were prepared to do that, talk through that, practice that. so that if anything did happen, we were ready. So those were the two probably biggest things that I think still today are the primary concerns.
Yeah. So for anyone who's just tuning in, I know people come in and out of this program. We're talking tonight about double-handed racing, and we're talking to Roger Lant and Michael Whalen, who have done several races together on the J35. And so preparation, and neither or both of you can answer this question. How do you prepare for such a race in a way that is different from an ordinary race? Or is it you just prepare like an ordinary race?
I think there's boat preparation, and then there's our own preparation. Yeah. I think we're not young and spry anymore, so if we could actually hit the gym every day and do some cardio, that would really help. Sadly, our lives get in the way, and we don't do that, and therefore that energy conservation and management becomes a bigger issue. Boat preparation, that's gotten easier every year. I think Roger and I spend a lot of time. Probably close to 30 hours between him and I, and then he did a lot of work even before me getting the boat ready. That gets easier every year. But Roger, if you want to go into some of those details, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think as I looked at the first year, the safety requirements for the AYC double-handed matching the ORC needed quite a modification from what is normal bay sailing in one design fleet. It was masthead aerials. It was fully plumbed in radios. But I think the key is more the thinking of the problem you're going to have and how you prepare. And so I think planning is a major part of getting the boat ready, getting ourselves ready, as Michael alluded to, talking through safety drills, talking through spinnaker douses, head sail changes, and then the practicalities of you're out racing for 24 hours. You've got to have looked at the weather. You've got to have a good understanding of your course, such that you're dealing with the change that's presented to you and not the initial plan. And I say that so many times at work. Deal with change when you're trying to execute a plan, and don't have to deal with the plan itself. So that's something we work on extensively with the boat. We come in prepped, and then we get the opportunity just to sail the boat.
Mm-hmm. So Bob Dunn asked a question, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but let's answer it. Let's talk about man overboard preparation. What have you done drills? What's your how did you prepare for that?
So we've been out, we've talked it through, we've sailed it through. I'm gonna say you can never do enough. I think I was very fortunate coming through. I did a lot of man overboard type work in dinghies, and hence I don't think whenever we take the boat out, boat handling's not something we really do a lot of thinking about, because we've got a level of confidence that we can sail the boat. But I think for people that don't have such an extensive background in and confidence in sailing the boat, you've got to get out and you've got to practice, because I will say too many times being in the Caribbean, I watch people try and pick up a mooring buoy under engine. And the reality is you're trying to do that under sail. Yeah. And you're, typically when you're picking up a mooring buoy, the conditions are flat, they're calm. You're trying to manage all of those parts and pieces. And so I can't say enough. Read the text, get some experience, and practice. I think just an example I would use is we were out racing, not this weekend, the weekend before for Fall Series. We came in both days to the dock with dead batteries, so we had no engine. and we sailed both days into the dock, and we did that just because as a crew we've got the confidence that we can put the boat where we want it, and we walk through drills in advance, so when we come to execution we get the return that we're looking for.
So let's talk about your safety gear, what you're wearing on your body, tethers, harnesses, anything like that. What do you guys have?
PFDs with harnesses. We run jack lines, usually full length of the boat across the cockpit. Clip it into those, when you're up on foredeck if the conditions are up. EPIRBs, making sure you have that.
So you have a personal EPIRB.
Personal EPIRB,
okay.
Yep.
So that's attached to your life jacket.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure you check those, right? I mean, most of us get complacent about that as the year goes on, and this race is the one that Roger and I have done repeatedly is at the end of the year, and got to check it before you do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the on the body, and then safety gear on the boat. Roger, if you want to go through.
Yes, safety gear on the boat. We have throw line. We've got a horseshoe on the back of the boat. We've got a throw cushion at the helm. And then we also have an inflatable unit that we have on the back. Literally, you throw over the back and self-inflating, and off it goes. And most of the boats that sail offshore have a MOM-8 type unit. So ours is similar to that, but not the same. I think the part of everybody gets so very comfortable on the Chesapeake because the conditions, relatively speaking, are so safe. But I think as the conditions pick up and you get closer to shore, then you've got to be prepared. You've got to know how your anchor runs. You've got to have it available to you as you need it, such that you can manage these things. And going double-handed, it's very important for me to convey to Michael where the boat setup is. So we step through that each year we get on the boat. Because if I'm the one over the side, then I want Michael to have all the capabilities that I would have in the boat.
Right. So Ron Chazinski asked a question. You answered that you use your harnesses and you use jack lines, but he asked, do they interfere with sail handling? That's a great question. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for tuning in.
So, Ron, to answer that, I think the life jacket is a requirement of the racing we do. Does it interfere? Yes, it can. So as far as clipping on and using the jack lines, I think we apply what is appropriate to the conditions, and obviously whether it's day or night as to what's appropriate. And I think each and every skipper has got to decide where you draw that line, and some of it depends on the competence of the crew that you're sailing with.
Yeah, well, I know that with some of the ocean races, they have, certain rules that you clip in when it's dark, or, if the sea state is calm and the weather is calm and clear, and you are inside a safe bay, it's okay to not be on deck with your life jacket, or that's a matter of personal preference. But, I know that you guys did the Annapolis Yacht Club double-handed race, and Rick's question that just came in. Well, we'll get to that one. But for those who aren't familiar with the race, would you describe how long it is and how long it takes? Because it's it's a double-handed distance race. So if you guys will describe the timing of it.
Sure. The race, they try to do right around 24 hours or thereabouts, 100 miles. We typically start right around noon depending on timing and number of fleets. And for the most part, boats the last couple of years have been, first boats are just after sunrise, maybe about 7 o'clock finishing. Some of the later boats come in anywhere between there, and I think the latest we had was probably 3 o'clock. It's definitely makes for long days. What's interesting about the race is because it is right at about that 24-hour mark, you have a tendency not to worry so much about getting sleep, which means at the end you're usually even more drained. I think if it was longer, a day and a half, 2 days, 3 days, having that shifts and making sure you got your sleep would be even more important.
It's nice that we have a little visitor in there. Usually that's a dog or a cat. That's the first time we've had a cute kid show up on the SpinSheet Happy Hour. Hi there, welcome.
Say hi. This is Levi.
Hi, Levi.
Say hi.
Welcome to the program. So you get to prepare him early for double-handed racing.
Oh yeah, he's already got his first sale.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I'm glad he was able to join us. So Rick Lober asked a question, and Roger, I'll let you answer that one. Wait. What's your watch schedule? We'll get to the meals later.
So going out for a double-handed 24-hour race, we go into it without a watch schedule. Our intent is to push the boat as hard as we can for the 24 hours. Now, obviously, there are certain times that if we've got the spinnaker up, then obviously we ideally want us both on deck. If we're beating up to windward, then it's a good opportunity to get some sleep. So we typically try and get rest around the race course as we see appropriate for what we're looking at ahead of us with both weather and course direction.
Yeah.
And well-laid plans never work out. Every time Roger goes down to go to sleep, it's time for a sail change.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Well, I was wondering about that too, because I was thinking, if you were to really get good rest on a race like this, it would be less of a double-handed race and more of a solo race. Then you just swap and then solo race. But with the sail changes on your boat, I mean, that's a lot. How about food? Ron Jasinski asked how you schedule your meals. Do you eat meals? Do you throw each other a beef jerky every once in a while? I mean, how does that work?
I think this last one we just had rounds of sandwiches, and we just incrementally try and eat. I think what we do quite a good job of is hydration, because the boat's stocked full of Gatorade generally and water. So it's just at every opportunity, especially after high energy burn sessions, it's a case of stopping and hydrating. Whoever's not driving is typically the bartender or chef. And we just try and make sure that we're regularly fed and that we don't get distracted from staying properly fed and hydrated. But
go ahead, Roger. Sorry.
I was going to say it's just part of our planning process of looking at the weather and then trying to work out what we need, whether we need hot drinks. If we do need hot drinks, then we'll bring a flask. But typically on the Chesapeake in October, it's all about cold drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say for those who aren't British, a flask, not meaning the whiskey type flask.
Yeah. That wouldn't help with hydration. That might backfire.
I would say eat before you need it. Drink constant. If anybody's below, we would usually hand up 4, right? One for now, one for later.
Right.
And so, and eat definitely before you need it, because once your energy drops, it's really, really hard to recover.
Yeah, that's true. Carol Elwood asked a question. Do you hand steer or are autopilots allowed?
So autopilots are allowed. I suppose one of the less fortunate parts of having a J35 is we don't have access to the rudder post, which limits our autopilot options to, without spending a lot of money, to what I call fairly dumb options. It's not as if in some of the high performance short-handed boats, they're running full computers, smart autopilots, and I'm going to generally say they drive better than most people. We don't have that luxury, so we tend to opt to hand steer at every opportunity, and then only use the autopilot when needs must. But a lot of the times, what we find is that when needs must are typically when the wind builds and we're trying to get a spinnaker down, or and the autopilot simply won't drive the boat at that point. So they're the challenges we deal with. But the benefit of a tiller, put it between your knees, and then you've got two hands available to deal with all the lines.
Well, let's hold that other question that Rick Lober asked, because that's coming later. We'll talk about your future plans in double-handed racing. But first, let's talk about some of the challenges that you guys have faced. I want to hear about a moment that didn't quite go that well, and what you guys learned from it, and maybe what you did better the next time. Can you tell us about one of those moments?
I will say we've generally had fairly good luck in most things. I would say we did the Lighthouses race in 2020, and the first year it came out, and there was some competition out on the race course. So
it was windy. It was a beautiful windy day, as I recall.
It was probably blowing 15 knots.
Nice.
But it's trying to work out the balance with the boat. The boat's obviously fairly beamy. We normally carry 7 people on the rail. In that race, we had a spinnaker leg that was reachy. I think into a reach across the bay. Then we turned the boat around and we had another reachy spinnaker leg. And I think we were just a little too optimistic as to what we could carry. So twice we doused the chute under load and really fought with the boat to get the kite down. And I think what it shows is you have problems when you don't set yourself up for success, because you're dealing with a problem that you've given yourself instead of having a planned douse at a mark where you get the boat at the angle you want to minimize the loads. Any other thoughts, Michael?
And feel free to share any thoughts about the spinnakers. I think, honestly, the spinnaker, when I talk to people about their apprehensions when it comes to double-handed racing, it's the pulley end of the boat that scares the heck out of them, it seems, more than anything. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
I'd say it's all about taking time, right? You don't do jives quickly. You do them as quick as you can, but it's definitely not as fast as when you've got a full crew. You take your time to slowly work the boat down, make sure that your helmsman, who's also flying both ends of the kite at that point, is ready. The boat is under the kite and staying under the kite, which isn't always the easiest thing when you're steering between your knees. At least for me, Roger's a much better helmsman than I am. And normally I send Roger forward on the boat, so in case he falls over, because if I fell over, I'm not sure he'd come back to get me, because he is definitely the better sailor. Taking that time, making sure you do it right the first time, because correcting anything that's not right is much, much worse. So it's just about patience and double checking everything before you go into the maneuver, and then double checking everything after the maneuver.
So I was going to ask you, maybe give an example of a couple things that have gone right. So it sounds like your preparation has gone right thus far. Anything else there, or even a moment that you're very proud of that you tell people about?
Well, I think I would say the seconds that we've got in the AYC double-handed, but that's becoming a frustration at this point. I think where I'd say we did what we raced at Oxford, as you referenced earlier, and then we turned the boat around and we sailed it home. We sailed it back to Annapolis. Once we got out in the bay,
why wouldn't you? What a great afternoon to sail! My gosh!
Oh, it was fabulous. I can't think of actually better sailing conditions in recent years. But we put the kite up. We came out of the chop tank. We put the kite up, and we blew back to Annapolis at somewhere between 10 and 14 knots.
Yeah.
And we, as the breeze was building, we normally always drop the kite into the front hatch on the boat, but we were talking about the double-handed. We were talking about the need to practice. As we were coming round Tully Point, the boat was getting a little bit more. We were pointing up a little bit more, so it was a little bit more reachy. And we started talking about the douse. There was 20 to 25 knots of breeze at the time, so we we dropped the sail directly behind the main into the main hatch, which is not something. I don't think we've ever done it on the boat. So we doused that way. We had the spinnaker halyard trailing off the back of the boat. There was. I'm going to give a little plug here. There's on YouTube. There are jog, short-handed sailing videos. It's one of the south of England yacht clubs or double-handed. Sets of sailors have got together. They've done presentations on preparation, and I think there's some great information there that is not you don't typically see, because it's not often we're sailing in 25 knots double-handed on the Chesapeake. So I think there are simplifications of what we do that watch the video, get some confidence, and it's those simple tricks that take the problems and the foo bars out of the douse. And I think that's where most of us we're all conscious of it.
Yeah.
Because when it goes wrong, unfortunately, it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But it goes back to those simple, if you sail technically well through a douse or through a hoist, then you give yourself best opportunity to succeed.
Yeah. So I can't help but think that, the last time you were on this program, we were talking about, various disasters on a boat, and you were talking about losing your mast. Well, when you lost your mast, I know it was a Wednesday night because I was doing yoga on the dock when you guys came by, and I thought, ooh, that didn't go well. That was ugly. You had a lot of people on the boat to help clean up the sticks and spaghetti and tie them up and be able to get the boat back there. That would have been quite a challenge with just the two of you, huh?
It would. It definitely would. And I suppose that's something we've not really planned for. Yeah. But I think in choosing a double-handed sailing partner, you have to be practical. Because at the end of the day, there's not 9 of you to solve your problems. As you note, there's 2 of you. So I think Michael and I are both fairly mechanically minded. And so we can solve problems as they arise. And I think we complement each other. Where I say I'm mechanically minded, it's mechanical not in an engine sense or an electrical sense. They're things I just don't really enjoy. But that's where Michael has a great strength.
Are you an engineer, Roger?
I am.
Okay. And how about you, Michael? What do you do for a living?
I'm a geologist by education, but I grew up in machine shops and
Okay.
working as an auto mechanic and kind of jack of all trades. So
Okay, good. Well, that does sound like a good combo there.
It works well.
So, what is, Michael, I'm going to ask you this one. What's the appeal of double-handed racing? Why do you do it?
It is definitely the challenge. You have to do everything. You have to watch for everything. You have to be aware of everything. I'll say it. I think when Roger and I are out, we don't have any conversations other than the sailing. And you think about, well, how could you do that? You're out there forever. You're out there for 24 hours. Really, you're spending all the time looking at the sails. You're talking about what your next move is. You're talking about your next angles for your, when you do your jibe, what are you going to do? And so for me, that just having that constant, always thinking about what's next, always planning, I really love that. And so to me, that's the driver. And then you get to do everything. You may not do everything really well, but you get to do everything. Like we have a bowman normally who is phenomenal. I am definitely not even close to that. And so when I'm up there, I'm like, okay, yep, I definitely made that mistake, or I didn't run that right. Because when you're sailing with 9, you don't get to do every job.
Yeah, right.
When you go out with 2, all of a sudden now you have to do every job. And so if you have,
I can totally see the appeal of that. That rather than have that one little job, when there are 9 people on the boat, you have your one little job, you do it well, then double-handed, you get much broader. I imagine that improves your skill set all the way around.
Yeah, I think so.
Theory, right?
Yeah. It's then hard to go back to sailing with 9 and keep your mouth closed when you need to focus on your position.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would say in 2019, when we were practicing to do the first double-handed, when I'm driving the boat and we're racing fully crewed, I don't get to play with mast bend or sail set. So that was a great opportunity that we worked out certain aspects of how the J35 sails best when there weren't other people on the boat. And I think from that perspective, it was very good for making the boat go faster. But then I think, again, it makes, when I said earlier, technically correct, in the way you sail the boat, it really brings your awareness to how you turn through a jibe. Because when you're flying the kite and you're driving, there's nobody else to blame for the kite collapsing but yourself. So I think things,
unless Roger's on the foredeck and I'm driving and flying the kite, and then he blames me for collapsing.
It was early in the morning.
You have to have words every once in a while when you're in a double-handed race. Does that happen to you guys? Bit each other's head off ever? Or
No.
We're
both pretty calm.
We run a. I'm a great believer that if people are shouting on the boat, then it's chaos. I'm under pressure. I'm a great believer that under pressure, one has. If you're in charge, you've got to be calm, because everybody else is going to follow that lead.
Yeah. Have either of you attended any of the events of the Chesapeake Shorthanded Sailing Society, Chess?
I've got to say, I have not. I haven't. I've talked to the guys at some of the CBYRA prep meetings for the following year. I think it's trying to get that balance between keeping the boat racing full-time, fully crewed.
Yeah.
Having a family that would like to see me occasionally.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Halpern, who's one of the organizers of that group, and he's been on the program before. And as you guys know, he's incredibly knowledgeable about shorthanding, and he sails his boat solo a lot. So he's talked a lot in the magazine and on our program about outfitting your boat for shorthanding it. And but I did talk to him at the boat show, and he said it's a struggle to get people together because there are so many factions within shorthanded sailing. There are people who just want to go on a cruising adventure, and that's their shorthanded sailing. There are guys like you're really enjoying this double-handed racing, and that's another faction of it, you know. So there are people who go all the way and do something like the Bermuda one too. And I've met those guys and interviewed those guys, and they're absolutely certifiable, but they are cool guys, and they have a lot to teach about, you know, what to do on a boat. And I say guys, they're not all guys. There are some women, but it's still the majority of them are guys. Do you guys aspire to doing anything? Rick Lober asked earlier if you would consider doing something like the Annapolis to Bermuda race double-handed. Have you considered that, or doing something like the Bermuda one too?
So,
or does Eli keep you inside the bay right now? Is that, or Levi, he's keeping you inside the bay right now? You guys might have different answers to that question. I'll let Roger go first.
I am signed up to the newsletter for the Bermuda one too. I joined them for a webinar earlier this year. It is something I definitely aspire to do. I think it's a massive challenge, and I think the J35 certainly makes that challenge that little bit harder, simply because of how hard it is to handle, or the sail inventory is to handle. So it's really, I've been spending quite a bit of time talking to different folk about the best way to handle the head sails. I think spinnakers are fairly straightforward. They don't concern me as much, but head sail handling on the boat definitely is my primary concern.
Spinnakers are light. Our head sails are not.
Yeah. How about you, Michael? Any aspirations beyond outside the Chesapeake when it comes to double-handed sailing?
Yeah, I'd love to. My wife and I got engaged in Bermuda, so all the more reason to go back and go a little early and hang out and wait for Roger to show up, and then sail the other leg.
Do you guys also sail with your spouses, or is
my wife chooses generally to we're two different levels of competition. I'm very competitive. Karen's not, but I entered the boat into the Friday night series for the last couple of years. I've got two kids with the intention of getting them out on the boat and sailing a little bit more with them. But nice. I will say ice hockey typically creates a dent in that plan.
Hockey getting in the way of your sailing. How about you, Michael? Is your wife a sailor as well?
No, she does suffer from some motion sickness, but we do want to do like a Caribbean cruise and get out a little bit. She'll go out. Some friends have sailboats for just that are cruisers, and we'll go out every now and then with them on the bay and sail around a bit. Definitely more the relaxed, not the racer as I am, but she does love being on the water.
So, Michael, I'll ask you first. If someone wanted to try double-handed racing, what would you recommend? Where would you recommend that they start? What would you say to them?
Wow. I'd say you're building your personal skill sets to know and understand each and all the positions. So if you're starting from scratch, get on a crude boat and work your way back, right? Start as rail meet, work to mast, work pit, just keep progressing. Get comfortable everywhere. And then even start working as a tactician, because you got to do it all. Pay attention to, the weather, the currents, as you're out. And so it's all those little things. Build your confidence and understanding how to execute well in each of those areas, and then apply that in a couple practices, and then also find a really good skipper.
Yeah. How about you, Roger? What would you recommend?
I think it really depends where you're starting. If you're starting with a lot of experience, then go out, go practice, and just work out how to handle sails. But there's so much information out there. Obviously, chess is a great resource, and typically guys that sail short-handed boats love talking about sailing short-handed boats. So I'm going to say don't necessarily go and learn the hard way, but absorb what you can from other people and then come back and ask questions. If you are if you're still learning sailing, then I would say take it a little bit more slowly. Get out there and don't worry about whether you're at the front of the chess fleet or the back of the chess fleet. Get out, put 2 sails up, and get the boat round the course. Once you've done that, then you can practice and start to introduce the spinnaker if that's what floats your boat, and just develop your skills. But don't put yourself in a position that it really puts you off. And be very prepared. If the wind is where you're not comfortable, say no. Don't take the boat out.
Yeah. We just say when in doubt, don't go out, right?
Yep.
So, and I will just add to that, because speaking of Jeff Halpern and the chess organization, I say this because he's offered it on the air that if you're interested in having an experienced shorthanded sailor come on your boat and just sail with you one day and take a look at how your lines are run and how things are working, maybe give you some ideas on how to, change the boat a little bit, or how to get yourself more comfortable doing some maneuvers. So sort of, some people want to solo sail, but they're too scared to do it because they can't figure out how to get around the wheel over to the winch and that sort of thing. But there are folks on the Chesapeake who would be glad to help with that sort of thing. So, but programs like this are helpful too. We have talked right up to last call. Do you guys have any additional wisdom for our audience out there? And what's your next plan? Are you done double handing for the season, or?
Yeah, the boat's coming out the water a week on Monday. So I think
I got some electrical problems to fix. We got a battery that won't charge.
Yeah. Yeah, so the boat will go back in next year, and we need to talk about the schedule we're going to put together at Double Hand as well as Fully Crewed. But we will be back for the AYC Double-Handed hopefully next year. So if you ask me my parting comments, if you don't double-hand sail at the moment, get some practice in and end that AYC's 24-hour race. Let's get the numbers up.
Yeah. This year was a smaller year. I don't know if it conflicted with another major race. There are just so many races at this time of year. But anyway, you guys have been great guests. Thank you so much. And I loved meeting your son. That was a little bonus there. And but Roger, I know you had other things to do tonight. So thanks for taking the time to talk to us. It was great to talk to you. Michael, nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure.
And Sharb's probably going to put us in the green room, so don't hang up, because we're having a party in the green room when we're all done.
Party in the green room. That's what it's all about.
Are you gonna put me back there too? Say
Bye-bye.
bye. Everybody have a great weekend.
Yeah. I'll put everybody in the green room real quick. Big thanks to everybody that joined us tonight, and to our 2 guests as well. And of course, big thanks to Defender for helping out and sponsoring this episode. If you can, folks, tell everybody about SpinSheet Happy Hour, and share it with your friends. Let them know that we're out there, and I think it's a really good resource. So just encourage people to check it out. And until the next time, thanks for reading SpinSheet. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks. Press that button.